Welcome, Simon. Welcome, Marina. Thank you for being here.
Hello, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you.
For the people who are here and the few people who don't know Simon and Marina, well, Simon Dolan is a professor, is a writer, is the creator of the Coaching by Values methodology. And we are here today because we are somehow presenting the
Beautiful.
Italian edition of the bestseller, one of the bestseller of Simon, which is um, around coaching by values and but also leadership and management. And Marina, she's from Milan. She's a dear colleague. She's a business coach, counselor, expert in Enneagram, and she has been collaborating with the book. She wrote a chapter. So we are going to talk a little bit about the book, about values. And I have one question for Simon. And the question is about the future of work, because I was reading the other day the report on the future of work 2020 from the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
And they say they were giving some impacting data. For instance, they say that in a period of 5 years, almost 50% of the workers will have to acquire new skills
Yes.
and new abilities. They also say that their vision is that in a short period of time, some 85 millions of jobs will be lost, but on the other side, 1 million of new jobs will be created. All this is mainly because of digitalization. Uh, but I would like to talk with you going beyond the data or the how to respond to this, because you are an expert of the future of work, and we know that we can somehow shape the future, prepare for the future. So I would like now thinking also about the book where you talk very much about these issues. What can provide values in shaping this and managing this future?
Well, the answer is not straightforward. It's not so simple, but I'll try to provide a relatively simple explanation. Okay. Now, there are a lot of people that talk about the future. And when they talk about the future, they don't have a crystal ball. They look at some trend and they imagine what will happen. Nobody knows, what will happen in the future, but we can speculate about it quite intelligently. It's true. When I was in I started business school, I was I had a chair that is called the Future of Work, and I was also connected with the EU commissioner, the DJ employment. So he had a committee of people, and we all speculated about life in Europe in 2050. Imagine, what is the future? We cannot predict what will happen in 5 years, and this was very risky to do some simulation and to talk. So one needs to be very creative. So what I can, and now, about 2 years ago, I created a think tank foundation. Foundation is that where you bring some experts around the world, academics, business people, universities, politicians, because one of my messages later on is that we need to educate the politicians, because otherwise they will still do politics that applies to today, maybe tomorrow. What about the day beyond tomorrow? So we need to educate them, and we live in the age that we call it transformation. And transformation means that it's not just simple change, it's a change that there is no going back. So let me tell you a little bit about what we think will happen in the future. And I say we think because I work quite closely with the Professor Mario Reich. He's a Swiss futurologist, and we wrote a couple of books about the future. One of them was over 10 years ago, and it's interestingly enough, we predicted the pandemic. We didn't know it's going to be 10 years ago. You know, we didn't know it's going to be a COVID. We predicted a nuclear explosion of one of the power plant, and it happened in Japan. We didn't know it's going to be a tsunami. We predicted what we call migration crisis, and you're in Italy, you had it, now you have it, you are less in the news, at least here in Spain. In Spain, they're still talking about all the immigrants that come from Africa, you know, and they in this boat, and more and more and more. So we did some predictions, because this is systemic way to look at some macro trend and bring it together into a model. So think that this was 10 years ago. In 2014, 6 years ago, we wrote another book, and it's called Cyberness, The Future Reinvented. And let me tell you why I insist on explaining all this before I go into your question and the answer. Because I'm sick and tired, honestly, of people that portray the doomsday, that everything is going to be bad, that people will not have work, you know. I mean, we can do it, and maybe some people believe it, but you know what? It's not instrumental. Why? I mean, we're depressed enough, we're melancholic enough, and we live through COVID. So let's create some light point, I mean, that can inspire people, that can bring some optimism to them, positive, not something that is euphoric, but something that is realistic, but realistic positive. And in order to do it, and talking about the future, I had to invent some new terms, because you cannot talk about the future using terms that are today. So the book, for example, it's called the Cyberness, The Future Reinvented. And what is cyberness? Cyberness is the state of the future, but positive. Why? Because we want people to imagine, we want people to create. And normally we are prisoner in our imagination of our experience. How can we imagine something that we did not experience? Now maybe we experience pandemic, so we can imagine something about what will happen in the next pandemic. But before this pandemic, we didn't know what are the implications for a pandemic. We didn't know what it means. So what will happen in the future? And this is what we write today. And we write in our, by the way, and you know, everything I tell you, I don't feel like I'm doing commercial, because all the reference that I'll be mentioning are reference where you can go and download free of charge. It's free. So that's why I feel like, you know, I'm informing, but I'm not selling, if you know the difference. So on the website of the foundation, we publish our recent articles. We write about 2 or 3 articles about the future, sometimes with some of the best gurus in the world that collaborate with us. For example, one of the last papers that we wrote about the future of work is with Dave Ulrich. Dave Ulrich is a very well-known guru in HR, you know, he's all over. And now we're preparing another one with him about life in cyberness. And so if you go to the website, you'll see a lot of papers. They're all in English, because I have a contract with the European Business Review. And this is a journal like the Harvard Business Review. And we, you know, I'm training myself to write to this journal, because it's half science, the other half is maybe fiction. And I agree that, you know, a lot of the things that I talk about that will happen in the future may or may not happen. But I prefer to think that it will happen, because it helps people to prepare for it. So this is what I wanted to say. Now, there are 3 drivers that can explain the future, that they can explain the transformation, why we cannot go back. You just mentioned one of them. This is technology, the digital world, this is only one of them. And there is no doubt that every day there are going to be some breakthrough innovations, some new technology. Actually, even the scientists themselves cannot believe that they found out a 95%, 100% vaccine in a record speed. And you know why they did it? because it's a different way to focus on disease, on the epidemic. It's not like the old paradigm where we isolated the virus, we kill him a little bit, we injected, a weak version of it, people develop. This was the yesterday. Today, we're working through messengers, something that has to do with the re-engineering, some biological re-engineering, okay? And it probably, I said, it will not have any side effect. Honestly, I have to tell you, and I read a lot about it, I am a candidate because I'm in the risk category and I really believe in the efficiency and the effectiveness of it. So the digital work, I call it digital, but it's virtual as well. It's everything has to do with no technology, okay? And I don't know how many people imagine that they don't work in the real world, but they work in the virtual world. Virtual world will be a place where people will work, okay? They will virtually go to a virtual office and they will be working there, not all of them. So the digital world, the technology is changing the rule of the games. And where is the limit? I don't know, but I'll come back to it in a second. Second, this is the first driver, no doubt about it. And we have to be open. We have to embrace it and not resist it. We all know that when the Industrial Revolution started in the UK, that used to be the big empire, there was the Luddites, and they went and they broke the machine so that the machine will not take away the work, from the workers, okay? That's one reaction, but I think it's primitive because it did not stop the Industrial Revolution. And it will not stop also the digital revolution that we work today. So this is number one. Number two is globalization. I still see people talking about the country, to talk about unemployment in a country, in a region, and all this, excuse me for being nasty, but it's going to be stupid, because the workers of today are workers like you, Paula, or me, that you commute in normal times between Madrid, between Italy, and maybe some other places where your talent and skills can add value. I do the same thing, I was born in Israel, I was trained in the US, I worked many years in Canada, and now I'm in Spain, and when I'm going to be tomorrow, I don't know. Even age is not a barrier. So one need to understand that globalization is with us to stay. It also means that when people look for jobs, they have to develop the kind of talent that they can farm, they can offer wherever the need is. Obviously, it requires some new skills, including the skills of conversing in other languages. That's one of the skills. And there are some other skills, okay, using the latest technology et cetera. But I want to give you an example of the message I tried to give my MBA students before I left the university. Because the MBA students, at least in my university, that paid a lot of money to get the degree, thought they'll get the state-of-the-art knowledge, and the day after, they'll go and work for the top company in the world, and they're going maybe to amortize the big investment in the MBA. I don't know today how much MBA costs in Bocconi, or in ESADE, or in IESE, or in Harvard, but it used to be around between 70 and 100,000 euros. I'm talking about the MBA, in addition. So it's a lot of money to invest, okay? So when an MBA student came to me and he said, hey, professor, you also wrote books about HR. I'm about to graduate. Can you look at my CV and tell me how can I improve it? And I asked him, why do you prepare CV? And the student was shocked. What do you mean? I finish, I need to look for a job. I said, why do you look for a job? He said, what do you mean? I provoked him deliberately because I told him, why don't you create a job? Why join a company and be dependent on them and so on and so forth? Now, I teased him. What I wanted to tell him, basically, that in this day and age, if you have an idea and you have a computer and you're connected to the world, you start working tomorrow instantly. Doesn't matter where you are, okay? So he got the message because what we need we need really to open the mind of people to all the changes that are happening, to make sure that, being safe in a small village, in a small grocery, it is a big, 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 big threat today, because Amazon and company are going to eat you alive, okay? Because they are bigger, they are faster, and so on and so forth. And they have different ways of delivering the product, okay? Because, Italy told the world, the big companies, what we have to do, they didn't even know that they told it. Talking about pizza. How does it make sense that in the world today, when you order a pizza, many pizza deliveries, at least this is in Spain, I'm sure it is in Italy, if they don't give it to you within, let's say, 45 minutes, the pizza is free. In other words, people want good pizza, but they also want to be delivered when it's still hot, home, So if you have to wait 2 hours and it doesn't deliver in 45 minutes like it has been promised, it's free. Now, if pizza is free and it's costing maybe 10, 15, 20 euros, imagine when you buy a washing machine, a car, and you have to wait weeks and hours for the multiple. No. Everything is instant today. The car needs to be at your footstep 45 minutes. Otherwise, I'm not saying the car is free, but some sort of reduction. It's a revolution in the way of delivering the product to maintain customers, because customers today are not loyal to a company. They are loyal to a product, and they can easily change insurance company, we change medical doctor, we change dentist, we change everything. So globalization is the second driver of the change. And the third one, which is the most difficult for people to understand, is in this world, we need to be constantly creative. But because the fact that we just created a new book, it will help us for the next 2, 3, 4 years. But then it might become obsolete, because I work already on new methodology that we're going to add. We're going to give the menu, to make the menu richer for the people that already know something about values and so on and so forth. So this book, maybe in 2, 3, or 4 years, is going to include significant portion of new material created by me or by yourself also, because today knowledge is part of the process that I call co-evolution. And co-evolution, it means it's like, it's like a dancing tango. You dance, depends on your partner. With one partner, you dance better, and you learn from the partner that dance better, okay? So next time you dance better, and it's always increasing. So creativity. So what will be the world tomorrow? It's going to be digitally, virtually, technologically based. It's going to be global, and it required constant creativity. Why do I say this? Because what do people have to do in order to prepare for this world, okay? So we talk about talent, and I'll come back to the issue of talent later on. I call it, we need to have double compass. One compass is internal, and that's exactly what we have in this book. Because if you want to have some sort of balance for yourself, you need to get to know what's important to you. And to know what's important to you, some people have the resources to do it themselves, but it's not very easy. Others need coach and leader like yourself, like other people that will help them go through a process of understanding what's important. Because in order for you to sustain productive and happy activities, you need to know what's important, because otherwise you're going to do it for a while, but it's not going to be sustainable. So we've developed over the years what we call the 3 legs that help people develop this kind of understanding of what's important to them. So, and what it is a concept, it is a methodology, how do you apply the concept, and tools, how do you use tools, we call it triaxial model. If you read the book, you can find out much more about it. So in other words, and everything is matrix, because also in our day and age, we need to have nice graphic, we need to have a matrix so we can relate to it, because there have been many other people that talk about values, and I have many friends that are values experts, And I created even an international society. And 2 years ago, I think we were in one of the biannual conference of this society in Trieste, right? If you remember, Paula. So, and I co-founded it in the 80s for other reasons. So we are studying values, but we need the three parts component. We need to have a concept, methodology, and tools. It's not perfect because nothing is perfect. But given the feedback that we are getting from across the world, people can relate to it, people like it, and if they can learn it also in a more, I would say, funny way, funny and happy, then it stays. Then you don't need also to spend your lifetime to understand it, because that's what coaches are doing. Coaches are not consultants. Coaches are not therapists. Coaches are teaching people how to surpass, how to overcome problems in relatively short period of time. So they equip them with the tools that they need. So who makes the decision? The coachee, not the coach. So this is the first compass. And maybe if we can come back to it later on in your questions. So we need to have an internal compass. I focus on values, and I can explain why values, why not needs, why not anything else. This is internal. But we also need to develop what we call the external compass. And the external compass is to have an idea on where we are heading. And also, when you prepare for it, you need to have a margin to keep on changing all the time, because we live in the world of permanent change and transformation. So this is attitude. And how do you teach attitude? I don't know. What has changed over the years is that before, people used to learn, and it works well for many years. So there was the kindergarten, elementary school, high school, university, and the university, they gave you the certificate and said, now you're expert for the rest of your life. No, you're expert maybe for 1 or 2 or 3 years next year, if the university did a good job. And whatever, when I talk, I'm not the friend of many universities. I became the enemy. I became the enemy because I've been in many universities, and I noticed it's very sad that universities did not adapt to these changes that we are talking about. It's the consultant that are adapting. It's others that are adapting. The university is teaching and preparing students for the world of yesterday. If they're doing a good job, they prepare them for the world today, but not for the world of tomorrow, because they don't know what tomorrow, and they're afraid to take a risk. And we need to take a risk, to speculate a little bit, speculating intelligently. Let me just give you about one type of speculation that I think is reasonable, but you don't have to accept it, about the future. Yes, technology is going probably to substitute all manual labor, because robots are doing better job than people, and robots are not even unionized. So it's much easier, it's much more reliable to work and to do work through robots than do it through people, because human being, with all their devotions, with all their commitment. So if you're doing some manual work, you have a problem, because it's a matter of time before robots will substitute your work. Doesn't matter if it's in agriculture, collecting harvest. It doesn't matter if the industry producing cars. The ratio of robots and people, it's going to change dramatically. Unless if the resistance, the unions, the government will be such, but then they will become less competitive. So the question is how long you can sustain it. But that's so. There is segment of the population that is involved in, I would say, manual work, that they would be substituted. The same people may train themselves, and you don't have to go to university to get to know the new technology, and we call it churning. This is a term exists in English only. That some jobs get eliminated, but other jobs get created, because the new industry, the new world needs new type of jobs, okay? Now let's talk about intellectual work. If you believe some of the leaders that talk about artificial intelligence, they predict that on or before 2040, the level of artificial intelligence will be equivalent to the level of biological intelligence. So now we're talking about intellectual work. We're not going only to compete with each other. We're going to compete against machine that might be able to replace us. Today, we see some early, I would say, appetizer of what the future will hold. But in the future, they're going to be a robot equipped with artificial intelligence that they might substitute us, okay? But again, we're going to live through what we call paradigm shift, because the definition of jobs, I think, will change also. Because today a job means that you do something and you get paid. Maybe in the future, not everyone for doing something will get paid. Maybe we're talking about a new economic order where society, government, will make sure that not everyone pays, but everyone will have a minimum level of income so they can have life and they can do a lot of work that is voluntary. We need volunteers. We need volunteers today. You know, the religious orders found out, the religious order have a lot of volunteers that they provide food and shelter to people that the government cannot take care of them. That's what they do. Now, we don't pay them. They are volunteers. But we need to make sure that this type of volunteers also will have a minimum income to subside and live. And sometimes the volunteers have very creative ideas. You know, last night I just saw an amazing program on the Spanish vaccine that is coming, completely new. You know who are the two leading people that developed this new, it's completely revolutionary process. It's not the one that, you know, is coming from the Oxford, you know, it's another one that might be lasting forever. In other words, you know, talking about the vaccine that is coming, it's not, you know, we all take it. We don't know if we have to revaccinate ourselves in 3 months, 1 year, you know, but the work on some permanent. And the people that lead it are people that retired, you know, they talk, they studied for many years. Nobody listened to them. Nobody took them seriously. Okay. Money was not available. And now they're leading and they're pensioners. They don't get paid. They do it, you know, because of the passion. Okay. They do it because they feel like they need. And it's very promising. I don't want to get into details, but what I'm saying is that it fits a little bit into my theory. So in the future, a lot of things will change and also for mere survival, 2 types of trends might dominate the scene. I would say might dominate. I'm not sure to what extent. Number one, forget about working for one company all your life. I mean, this model doesn't exist. People will do job humping and they will change job. Also, I think forget about working full time for the same employer, because you don't want to take the risk that if management is not doing a good job, you're going to lose your job, like it happens in many companies when, you know, every day we hear about companies that either they're involved in scandals or they simply don't manage correctly the company, and the company go down and people lose job. So we're talking about something that I call it a permanent part-time, or people that will work a 40% for one company, 30% for another company, and maybe 30% for themselves. Okay, obviously, you cannot compete with each other, 2 companies to work. You know, you do other things, but this will be a much more, you know, working arrangement. And when you work for yourself, you don't have to work for the local market. You can work internationally. I mean, I've developed some applications with my programmers in Bangladesh. I offer it, by the way, free. I said I'm not selling anything, okay? But I developed a values for kids, something that we experimented. I decided to invest in a couple of thousand. You know, it's limited, to develop something for parents to try to instill values in the children. They also need the tools. And it's free. And in Bangladesh, I paid whatever I paid for people that told me, I got the following offer. We're expert in developing application for iOS and for Google Store. Tell us what, if you don't like the final product, don't pay us. And if you like it, here is, how much it's going to cost you. And what's costed me was maybe 25% of whatever I would have paid for the local market we're in, just because, and I'm not using these people because I know that what I offer them is about 40% higher than whatever they get in their own countries. I'm not responsible for exchange rate and things like this. So I don't feel uncomfortable about it. So in the future, that's what and the other thing that will happen in the future, and this, yes, we need to prepare the viewers. We're talking about lifelong learning. Forget about getting a degree or getting a certificate and that's it. You're going to ride with it for the rest of your life. Learning is going to be something permanent. And we're going to find out all kind of configuration. It's not going to be only universities, only companies, only consultant. It's going to be a configuration, consultant with university and companies and ONG. A lot of things will happen, okay? A lot of things will happen, And I'm experimenting with it right now, I said that, I work with the normal books, but I have to tell you that normal books, become obsolete in 2 or 3 years. And it's very tiring to do it. But the same book that I have in English, it's only digital. I wrote it once. I have a team that makes permanently the book updated and expanded, and that's easy. Technology is there. Why should we provide real book? Because there is a tradition, I know that what I'm saying is against, the no book that we are just offering. I mean, it's beautiful to have a book. But, in the future, because of obsolescence, we need to be engaged in lifelong learning. And we wrote with Dave Ulrich, with a couple of people, a couple of articles that you can download free from the website of the Global Future of Work Foundation. You just do www.globalfutureofwork.com and you can download all the articles that you wish, and it's all free, okay? That's what we are trying to do. Well, you asked me a complex question. I tried to give an answer, but it's an appetizer because I talk about it. I talk about it with passion because I don't do anything, that I don't have passion. But should people be worried about? Well, yeah, people should be worried about, like there is a pandemic, pandemic, they have to worry about, how to continue the business, how to provide food, how to pay the mortgage, obviously, no doubt about it. But then maybe it's going to be, I would say, an opportunity to create something that they didn't think before. I have a lot of people that tell me that I talk to them, yes, the pandemic had a lot of negative effect, but it has also had some positive effect. All of a sudden you live with the same person a lot of time and you're strangers and you have to make sure that, that the relationships are being kept. All of a sudden you discover that you have time, that you have some new hobbies or new ideas that you want, all of a sudden you never had time, to really, a nice book, nice, just reading a nice book, I'm ashamed to admit I'm a North American product that for years, I only read books in my profession. I don't read, I'm not a typical European, European, I think I'm much more horizontal. They read literature and they read novel, they also read professional book, But in my field, there is so much is being developed. So I feel like sometimes that if I will not read sufficiently in my field, I may lose the touch with reality, and it doesn't leave me time to enjoy something else. I delved a little bit into it during the COVID, and I feel that I'm much more rounded. So, every situation has its plus and its minuses. More or less, that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Simon.
Simon, if you have time, I would like to come back to trust and values with you, where I know you have a so great experience also with leadership, and I would like to engage you with a question. So at the moment, leaders have to take care about the balance sheet, the budget, and people are really stressed. And you spoke about stress before at the beginning of this, and they are really stressed about the delivery. And in this particular moment is really, really tough situation. So what I see, I've been working with leaders for some years, what I see that the soul of the leaders are really engaged in values, and in trust is so important for themselves. Sometimes they feel safe for that, but in managing the situation, they sometimes they can't do that. They can't do that in the same way. So there is a conflict. And I know it's not an easy question too for you, but I would like to know if you have any experience, any suggestion to say here for those leaders that are in charge in this situation. So very tough moment. Thank you.
Well, you know, again, I can say a lot about it, but let's start with the ABC of leadership. And this will help me to build around it. Now, I think even the concept of leadership is outdated. We need to start to talk about followership. Why? Because a leader that doesn't have people that follow him is not a leader. A leader needs followers. And the question is, let's put the focus on the follower. What kind of leader would you like to follow? And you would like to follow a leader that has a configuration of 3 axes all around the values. You want to follow a leader that delivers results, no doubt about it, but this is only one component. You also want to follow a leader that has an ethical conduct. This is the second axis in the triaxial model of values. But you also want to follow a leader, as you say, that has a soul, that inspires. Because if a leader, you know, that is not inspired, doesn't have the passion, doesn't have the optimism, doesn't have the way to help people overcome difficulties, people are going to abandon him. You know, I hate to get into politics, but I cannot avoid, because look at the case of the great leader of the United States, Donald Trump. Would you like to be a follower of Donald Trump? You know, I don't think that I would want, okay? Because if a leader just delivers results, but is unethical and unpassionate, that's not sufficient. So what is the great way to help leader? They need to develop their own compass. And then once they develop their own compass, which is a combination, because we expect leader, you know, it's a strange animal that needs to have many competencies, not only one. But the competences are not symmetrical. All depends on the company, the culture, the surrounding, and the expectations of the followers, okay? So once a leader understands his own compass, he is in peace with himself or herself, okay? Why? Because if it's only results, and you step on other people and you're unethical leader, that's not sustainable. If you are just a nice man, but you don't deliver results, the company is not going to keep you. I mean, maybe, you know, some of the followers will like it, but, you know, you need to deliver results. And what about passion? So what I'm saying is that a leader needs to have the 3, I call it the 3 spires. He needs to perspire, work hard, show results, be a model, okay? He needs to aspire. Aspire to achieve and guide the people that are around him, and normally with a good code of ethics, conduct. And he needs to inspire. See, those are my 3 spires. And our model helps a lot of leadership, because once they understand the configuration, I mean, it can happen that the configuration, I didn't mention it until now, is a universe of leadership is made of 100%. So if a leader wants to deliver 33% results, 33 ethics, and 33 passion, from this you can deduct the competences that he or she may need in order to do it. If the leader wants 80% results, 10% ethics, and 10% passion, well, it's another set of competence that might be needed. So what a good coach, business coach, needs to do is to have leaders reflect on, number one, what's important to them. Number two, what's important to the company, and to what extent what's important to them is aligned with what's important to the company. But also what's important to the followers that they have in their surrounding, okay? And based on this, they've developed a set of core values that will guide them. This is the internal compass of the leader. Now, when you develop and you identify the competences, we in our book, we talk about, in our book, we talk about 9 competences. And the 9 competences, I invented some of them because I projected the future. I'm trying to talk about the kind of leader that will succeed not only today, but also in tomorrowland. So the 9, that is a triaxial model, have 3, 3, and 3. We can measure them because you need a matrix. If you just talk about competence, you don't know what it is, you cannot measure it, it doesn't help you. And we can find out which, a leader needs to be brave enough to get in front of the mirror and get naked. I mean, I'm not talking about physically naked, but street himself and be, here is what I like, and here is what I like, and what I don't like. But I understand it's important. So if I don't like something, but I need the competence in order to exercise my leadership skill, the question is, can I learn it? And if I can learn it, why don't you do it? And if I don't learn it, what do? I need to surround myself with some people that have the skills and the passion. So maybe in the future, and I'm speculating now, we're not talking about leadership as a single phenomena. We're talking about leadership as a team phenomena. Because in order for a leader to be a jack of all trades, to have all the competence, to generate results, to be compassionate, passionate, and to engage in good ethical conduct, to respect people and so on. So it's very difficult. Not everyone, has it. I know I am sensitive to it, but sometimes I cut corner in order to get results, and then I regret. I work fast, I do things, Listen, the production of this book, I took a lady, she was not very expensive, I want to prove the results, but the lady had some problems, and finally, the end results was not perfect. That's why we had to go through 1 or 2 more iterations, okay, to bring the final result of this book as it is right now, that is perfect, that is beautiful, okay? So what I'm saying is that leadership, and that's what is the essence of what we call leadership by value. Those are authentic leaders that they can come up with a configuration of what is expected from them and what they are willing to deliver in terms of results, in terms of ethical conduct, and in terms of emotions or passion. Some leaders cannot develop passion. And how do you teach people how to be more passionate? I don't know, it's not easy. Sometimes, some of the traits and some of the competence that are needed, you're almost born with it, and through social learning, you learn a little bit, but I don't think that it's so straightforward. That's why leadership today is not an easy task. More than this, a leader today needs also to embrace the new technology. And this is something that didn't exist a couple of years back, because you need to be an influencer with your followers. And in order to influence your followers, yes, you need to know how to use the social network. Yes, you need to know how to be creative in seducing people to listen to you, to your message. Yes, you need to be an expert in communication. I mean, communication, I'll give you an example. I'm not saying that I'm a good leader, but I'm telling you what I'm asking people to do when they communicate with me. I tell them, if you send me a WhatsApp, you need to know two things about me, and you decide. Number one, I don't know when the WhatsApp is entering, because in order not to be stressed and not to be hooked up 24 hours to the phone, I eliminated the notices, the noise, whatever. I don't know. I decide when I'm going to look at my messages. I control it. Number two, don't send me voice messages in WhatsApp, because I have a lot of things to do and I don't want to spend 10 minutes just to find out what you wanted to really, what is the most important part of the message, and it comes at the end. I don't have time for it. So with me, it's bullet. Maybe it's too American, Canadian. The message is puff, puff, puff. That's it. I know Latin, Italian, Spanish, there is a lot of emotions and a lot of, we are very rich in verbs. Okay, I understand. But in English, English is very dry, hey, that's what we want to do. Let's do one, and that's it, you can add at the very end, hug, abrazos, whatever you want. That's fine. That's part of the culture. But go, because we're busy. So I learned how to scan my readings, my input I get. I don't read it all because I don't have time. But I've developed the competence to scan messages, to scan manuscript, to scan books, and normally I get about 75, 80% of the content. Don't make me an exam and tell me what's written page 487 on the top. I will not know it. But that's the way I work. So I tell people that are closer to me, that want to communicate with me, no messages, only text, no voice messages. And if it's really urgent, there is the old way of calling. Call me, because then I know it's urgent. If it's WhatsApp, I'll read it, I'll get it, I'll answer it, because I do answer all my messages. I don't know if that now. What about stress? So let me tell you, and again, this is not yet in the book, but this is in the menu, in the repertoire that we're preparing for the next year. For 2021 is going to be plenty of innovation, okay? Because I wrote a couple of books about stress. I started also my career in stress. I worked with a big guru that got named twice to get Nobel Prize for stress. And now, after the value game, or the value of values, I've decided also to risk even more. The people tell me that I'm crazy. And we've developed the stress map. The stress map is a map that will help people understand if they're stressed, but not stressed when there is an episode of stress, acute situation. I'm talking about chronic stress, because chronic stress for leader, it's much more difficult to diagnose. And so it's accumulating. You don't see it, it's accumulating. And when the outcome happen, and normally they're negative, it's too late to intervene. So I want to develop some diagnostic tools so the coaches, therapists, others would be able to help people. So the stress map is doing exactly it. It helps you assess some of the signs and symptoms of stress, and we've developed a new way of measuring it. Remember, whatever is not, you cannot measure, for me, it's worthless. This is what comes from my scientific rigor. I want to talk about the concept, I want to measure it, and I want to make sure that I can remeasure it later on, so that I can see the difference if I do something. So we develop a concept that we call it the density of stress. And the density is a concept that multiplies two things. It multiplies the frequency of some symptoms by the severity. So if you have few symptoms, very severe, it's a multiplication. Or if you have very frequent symptoms, but they're not very severe, that's another multiplication. So it tells you an idea about what are the symptoms that can explain, and all the symptoms are negative. Again, we're educating people. Sometimes people still talking about positive stress. It doesn't exist. Positive stress doesn't exist. Positive stimulation might exist, but stress is always negative. It's causing a harm to the body or to the soul. In other words, When there is no harm, there is no stress because you have the resources to overcome it. Okay? So when there is harm to the body or soul, it's stress, and we can measure it from very limited one to a lot of it. Then we can identify, speculate about where it's coming from. Is it coming from work context or maybe from family and relative context? And what we know from our research is there is a spillover effect. In other words, when you are stressed at work, you bring it home, and when you are stressed at home, you bring it to work. In both cases, you need to know. Then we also identify some people that are prone to stress because of the personality, because, you know, sometimes when things happen, we have a tendency to amplify it, which affect us more, or to filter it, which affect us less. So we are going to assess all this, and we put it on a map, and you can see the map, you can take a look, and then you develop a whole plan of action. It's beautiful. You're going to love it, and those that listen to us also. So we're just producing in about next week, we're going to get the first 1,000. You have to talk to the distributor, to my partner that some of you know, David Alonso, because he wants to offer it to our super coaches first, to experiment with it, to give us feedback, to tell us what we have to improve before we go into mass production. So we just produced 1,000 pieces, and it's up to David Alonso to decide, you know, who does he trust, you know, because we want to have the kind of coaches that will use it, but also give us feedback. We want instrumental feedback so we can come up with a final. So this is what about stress. Leaders are stressed. By the way, I started my journey into values by being involved with leader stress because I studied it in Minnesota. In Minnesota, there is a very famous hospital. It's called the Mayo Clinic, which is part of the University of Minnesota. And I studied I did survey among leaders, executive that developed their first heart attack. In other words, they thought they have no signs and symptoms before, one day, paf, and they had absolutely no history of cardiovascular disease, just like this. And it bothered me. It bothered me because the youngest one was 27 years old, the oldest 77. So the range from mainly men at that time, because many, you know, when I did my doctorate, the business world was dominated by men. Today, thanks God, we can find a lot of women in executive and leadership positions, okay? And they're doing very well job. Specifically in politics, you know, the people that are leaders in the political world, you know, whether it's New Zealand, whether it's Angela Merkel, you know, in Germany, or I think in Iceland, I forgot the name of the lady, they're doing extremely good job. And maybe we men, we need to learn from them. And because they have much more empathy and because the decisions, you know, are triaxle, okay? I mean, we can apply the triaxle model to understand political leader, but this is not our point. So leaders need to have some point, and they have it in their life, of acute stress. But this is, yeah, there are some specialists that can help them. That's why we have clinical psychologists and psychiatrists. And sometimes when acute situation, you need to help people with pills, with some other remedies. That's not the one that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned more about the chronic stress that have no symptoms. It have no color, no odor, but it ends up killing people. And, you know, hopefully, you know, the next book that we do in Italian as well is going to be how to manage the stress of your life and develop resiliency, even in situations that are uncertain. This is the title, you know, more or less the title of my new book in English that will be published in 2021, okay? So the same thing, it's going to be concept, methodology, tools to be at the service of who? This time it's not for the general public, even though the general public can benefit from it, but I want to help doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, consultants, coaches that deal with stress, concrete tools so that they have something tangible that you can develop a plan, you can remeasure it after you have a plan and find out if the intervention plan got you good results. I don't know if that's what you asked, but I probably gave you more than you asked for, but this is typical me.
Thank you very much.
That's also part of my passion. Okay.
Thank you very much, Simon. Has been, as usual, a very intense conversation, and you know, you always provide a very wide and very deep vision from the present to the future. Thank you very much. We are going to, as you say, well, give the best promotion to the book for leaders, for people who support leaders, and for normal people as well. And we hope we can have you here in Italy sometimes when this
Soon. I'm optimistic. I'm really optimistic. I'm telling you, soon. Sooner than we even imagine. Okay? But in the meantime, the fact that we have vaccine in the horizon doesn't mean that we have to release the guard.
Yeah.
We need to go with masks. We need to keep the distances. And I'm worried about the impact of the church in Spain, in France, in Italy. I know Christmas is a special holiday, but let's celebrate Christmas in safer time. So now, this is my message. Really, I really believe in it. Okay, I will not see my wife, grandchildren. I will not let them come. And if we'll see, it's going to be an open space with masks. Okay, this is a decision, and I'm very tough, and it's causing me a lot of conflict. But this is my conviction. And I don't think it's in my imagination. And I beg people in Italy, because the fact that you managed well one round of the epidemic, it doesn't mean that you're going to manage as well the second or the third one. So the best thing to do is to prevent, and prevention needs sacrifice, and I call for this kind of sacrifice. Thank you for the interview. It's beautiful, and we need to celebrate it, this book, whenever we can. Thank you for the initiative, because you're great ambassadors. You also 2 chapters add a lot of value to the book, because you know the community, you know Italy, and people like to see also not only generic stuff, but specific examples and people that come and know the community. And that's exactly what you did in the book. So it's me that need to thank you for this kind of collaboration.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
A virtual kiss. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, so.
Ok, Cristiano. Okay. Sabato mattina alle 9, mandaci il link Zoom.
Sì, possiamo utilizzare questo qui. Sì, comunque ve lo mando.
Sì. Ciao.
Ciao Marina.
Ciao, buona cena. Ciao.
Ciao, grazie.